Dragon Ball isn't a subject I've ever covered on this channel. It's something that I grew up with. I grew up on Dragon Ball Z way back when on Toonami and Cartoon Network, and I was devastated when they stopped airing over here in the good old United Kingdom. It wasn't until I was a teenager that I could fully watch the whole series. I watched Dragon Ball Super. I remember getting up earlys on the mornings of when they were releasing those shows and those episodes to watch a 3-part YouTube video from some unsung hero that on a burner account would upload the entire episode early before the subbed version dropped on whatever platform I could find it on then. And then just recently, last month, I found myself finally caught up on the manga after a while, just loosely keeping up on the events, but I heard that Goku and Gohan's fight was coming up. This sparring match was about to happen. I'm super excited to see where it was going, and not long after that, Toriyama's passing had occurred, and that news came about coincidentally on the exact day of the 1-year anniversary of my own mum's passing. So naturally, I now look at the 8th of March as a cursed date, because not only did I lose my mum, I lost essentially what was a childhood hero and someone who has influenced countless series and stories that I have also enjoyed myself. That brings us now to the latest chapter of Dragon Ball Super, which is chapter 103, which is titled A Legacy Towards the Future. And as I read through this today, I can't help but feel nothing but sadness and just, I don't know. The only feeling I can describe is, you know, when you really sunk into a video game and you are so close to completing it, and then you do complete it and you're just sat there like with the 1,000-yard stare, just staring through the PC screen or through your TV screen thinking, what do I do now? That was it. And this chapter was pretty much that. And it was all action. This chapter was all action. We got Goku and Gohan's spar match finally. Vegeta and Gohan, Broly and Gohan, and Trunks and Goten versus Broly. It was crazy. And all of these fights, they have significance. You know, Goku versus Gohan it's been waited on for a long fucking time. It's insane to see finally these two, father and son, finally getting it on. And Goten and Trunks fighting Broly was kind of like a reminder of Broly's second coming, the film back in the day. Again, that was another film I watched on YouTube through, I think it was like 13 parts or something. It was in 420p, you know? And even through the chapter, it didn't, as I was reading through the chapter, it didn't really have any sort of emotional weight within the words. It was all just fighting. It was all just action. It was the typical Dragon Ball chapter, but it's the action that brought the chapter to life for me this year. And maybe I'm just chatting absolute wham here when I say this, but this chapter to me felt like the perfect Dragon Ball chapter. I don't think I've ever laid eyes upon another Dragon Ball chapter that I can honestly, genuinely say this tops it. And I'm fully aware this chapter would have just been another hype chapter, and I don't think it would have struck nearly the same chord as half as much as it would if Toriyama was still with us to this day. And sadly, that's not the world that we're in. We are in a world where, unfortunately, Toriyama has been yoinked from us way too early. And this chapter felt like Dragon Ball's final send-off to Toriyama. It felt like a love letter. And as soon as I read the title, A Legacy Towards the Future, I just knew this chapter was just going to hit me in the square in the feels. It's square in the gut. And it did. And again, this chapter, it's really something that isn't that impactful. It's just the standard run-of-the-mill chapter for a Dragon Ball chapter, you know? It doesn't feel impactful when you remove yourself from the situation. We get a cool fight and the gang all sits down for some grub after some banter, right? And it's the ending panels. It's the ending panels, and it's the outsider knowledge that you know that you're going into when you're reading this chapter. And those ending panels really nailed it home for me. It was Goku returning to Earth, saying hi to Piccolo. It's the classic Goku forgetting his grandkids because he's just a fucking dipshit, you know? And then there's these final panels of Goku meeting up with Pan after school, and then Hair trying to kick him, and he just blocks the kick effortlessly with a big smile on his face, and then them flying away all mischievous while Gohan is just panicking and chasing after them. And everything in this chapter, it just felt perfect. And at the risk of sounding like that one Homelander meme, I genuinely would go as far as to say that I think this is the most perfect chapter of Dragon Ball that I think I've ever read. And I don't think it would feel that way if Toriyama was still here. But even the ending, the ending of this chapter reminded me of the ending of Dragon Ball GT, and I know a lot of people really dislike GT. I've honestly never understood the hate, but honestly, I loved it. I loved GT. GT gave me some of the coolest moments, and Super Saiyan 4, for me personally, it was one of my favorite transformations. And I remember when I was growing up, because back in the day, like, you couldn't just watch anime online back in the day. You had to watch that shit. When I was a kid, you had to watch that shit on the TV. But as I grew older and I got into my senior school and people started telling me about anime sites that you could watch all this on, it got me hooked. And then when I found out GT existed, I was like, brother, what the fuck? This is so cool. And I was so happy that the story continues on. And apparently not many people really like GT, which I think is surprising. But this chapter, everything just felt like a nice little homage. Goku back on Earth, meeting with the younger generations and flying away. And the fact that no dialogue between any of the characters is given in these final pages, I think that's what hits the hardest. It's Dragon Ball giving you the perfect show and don't tell moment. And until we reach the end, there's no words, no dialogue at all, until we get to this message that says, "We are deeply saddened by the news of Toriyama Sensei's passing. His work is an inspiration to all of us. Our thoughts and prayers go out with his family and friends and all who were touched by his work." And again, man, that message just hits. It hits really hard. And I think, I know full well, this is, I don't know what kind of bias this is, but there's a bias here going on, because obviously I found out about Toriyama's passing on the same day as the 1 year anniversary of my mum passing. And again, I grew up with Dragon Ball. Everything, the only way I could explain, like when I was telling people about this, because even like friends and family that don't watch anime, they don't know about this. They know about Dragon Ball. They know Goku. They know who he is. And the only way I could explain Toriyama to them was, he is the Stan Lee of that world. Stan Lee was revered as just the godfather of comics, still is, and that is the exact same thing for Akira Toriyama. And that was the only way I could explain to them. It's just crazy reading this chapter and going through it. I can't like, it's such a weird experience reading a chapter knowing that this is potentially the last chapter he ever worked on. And I had that in the back of my mind, or at the front of my mind, for the entire reading session. And again, Dragon Ball isn't something I normally cover on this channel, and I'm not sure if I'll continue to cover it, to be honest with you. I think I might just enjoy reading this in peace without making videos on it. But this chapter hit me in a spot that I didn't quite expect, and I wanted to get on here and talk about it, because I didn't say anything about the passing. I did on Twitter, but I didn't make a video about it. I didn't want to, I don't know, maybe I was like self-conscious about posting a video about his passing, where there was so many people that were doing it. I didn't want to be like one of those guys that sort of jumps on the bandwagon. That's not what I wanted to do. But everything that just happened with this passing and this chapter, it was perfect for me personally. It was perfect. I don't know if you guys have read the chapter. If you haven't, I highly recommend that you go and read the chapter. I think it's a perfect chapter. If you haven't read Dragon Ball as a whole, I think you should. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of discussion about Dragon Ball over the past couple of weeks, or over the past week almost, talking about, you know, why you should start Dragon Ball, why you should start Dragon Ball Z, why you shouldn't watch GT, why you should watch Super, blah, 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 all of this stuff. And I think if you are looking to get into a really good saga of work, something by someone that really loves the craft, loves the art, loves the story, loves the world, loves the everything that they're building up, I think you should just get stuck into it. Read it from Dragon Ball, go to Z, go to GT, read it. I know GT isn't canon, but whatever. Just go, read, watch it, do what you need to do, but go and enjoy it. But anyway, I wanted to get on here and talk about this. It's kind of a subject that kind of touched me a little bit today, and I felt solemn reading this, and I wanted to get on here and talk to you guys about that. But anyway, that's everything from me. I will catch you guys all in the next one. Much love, big fucking kisses, peace.